Welcome everybody. Hi guys. First of all, where we start, huge thank you to all these lovely faces that are here with us today. I want to get as we're all right here. Bacchus is starting us off great. There will be squeaks from the dogs at some point throughout the night. But let's go say hi to everybody here. I would love to know who you are, a little bit about what you do here on the Beadle and Grimm side of things, or the design things, and yeah, we'll start off with that. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Jon. Let's start with Jon.
Hey everyone, Jon Ciccolini with Beadle and Grimm's Pandemonium Empire. One of my
empire now.
One of my jobs is to wrangle all of the pandemonium that happens within this vast empire. We've got Matthew Lillard on our team. We've got Bill Rehor. We've got Charlie Rehor. These are people that must be wrangled. They are out of control, and I'm the one that tries to keep that under control. So you're going to see me very stoic tonight, very, very serious and on point, because business is business.
Just 100% got it.
That's right.
Bill, he said empire because he just got himself a little crown, I think was what
That's
that
right.
was. Yeah.
Yes. While it is true that Jon is the closest thing we have to a professional, it's a sad statement about our company as a whole. I'm Bill Rehor. I'm a co-founder as well, and I was the project lead on the Character Chronicles and worked with Jon on Absalom, and now Jon and I are working together on Spelljammer, and I don't know, we're stuck with each other. So
lots of collaboration.
no.
Some say collaboration, some say stuck with. We'll get into that. No, kidding. But let's go on over.
Distinction without a difference.
And Char, how about you?
I'm Charlotte Irrgang, and I am basically I am the lead designer on this Absalom project, but I am a freelance designer for Irregardless. That is, I'm the co-founder, and that's my box. And I'm awkward.
That's perfect. You'll fit right in. And then Waffles. Hi, I know you.
Hi.
You wanna say who you are though?
Yeah. One half of WafflesMapleSyrup. I'm Waffles. I GM some shows, two of which have now ended after a year, and we'll probably be GMing shows in the future, and that's me. Mental health advocate for the military, etc., etc., etc.
Awesome. And I'm Syrup. I'm the other half. He's sitting right across from me, so if you ever see me talking but I'm not talking, I'm probably just talking to him, because nothing is more fascinating on a live show. But first of all, welcome. Thank you so much. So what we wanted to talk about today is an inside look into these boxes. I have the Absalom box right here that recently we did a little unboxing stream. It was so much fun to go through all of it. And how this kind of came about, for a little inside, is that in the conversations of kind of going through this box, Charlotte and I on the WMS Discord were getting into all of like these insider stuff of not really insider, but just more in-depth look at some of the decision making, because I was looking through and I was like, oh, these tent cards, these table cards are such a good idea. And Charlotte was like, yeah, I did it. This is what I did. This is what the thought behind it was. And I was like, this is fascinating. I want to talk more about this. And so now we're here to talk more about it. And I'm excited. Also, you guys mentioned the Character Chronicles. We have those as well. Those are two beautiful things that I just love, honestly. So Before we get into too much of that, we talked a little bit about pandemonium, talked a little bit about chaos here. We're going to start us off with a great question, which is, I hear there are goblins in the warehouse. This is a bit of a concern. The package we got said that it was packed by goblins. What do you have to say about this?
Well, are you concerned from like a union aspect? Like, are you concerned for their working conditions, or?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Because-
all right.
Because they're not just relegated to the warehouse, right? I mean, we have goblins in marketing. We have
Yeah, they
goblins
go all the
in
way up
HR.
to solid middle
That's
management.
really good to hear. I'm glad. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Char-
mean, I would say we 5 of them are cast into the flames for every one of them that gets promoted. But I mean,
that's a pretty
considering
good ratio.
the goblin
honestly.
industry as a whole, I think we have a pretty good ratio.
For sure.
Perfect. Charlotte also mentioned that you guys have goblin titles yourselves. Is that something you're interested in sharing? You don't have to.
No, we do. I think they've just changed a number of times over the years. I think I was the Eclipse Goblin when I was working on Avernus, because Avernus's code name was Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also the Chief Operating Goblin at times, and I don't know. Well, I have no idea which goblin I am behind my
Chief
back.
Operating Goblin, so COG. Really?
The cog in the wheel.
COG in the wheel.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
How about you, John?
How about you, John? What are you, other than full-time goblin?
Yeah, I mean, I started off as the manager of the Saltmarsh box, the sinister Saltmarsh Silver Edition, and so for a while I was the Salty Goblin, because of that box, but also just because of my lashing out at
Attitude, personality.
Yeah, my attitude, absolutely. But now I think I go by sometimes like head production goblin.
Yeah, see, that's not as good of an acronym. I'm sorry.
I think
not as
you
fun.
should have upgraded to the savory goblin after the
It's
salt.
better than
Something
where
there
it's at least he's got the head production voblin.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. We do like to let chat settle in, get everybody in here. So as people come on in, I also want to say, as we talk about this, if you have questions or anything in chat that you're curious about, or just want to know, or just want to make statements, you're welcome to do that. And we'll pass them on to here and see what they have to say. All right. So let's start with the Absalom box because I have it right here and I don't want to get up.
That's perfectly reasonable decision-making process.
Yeah, thank you. So when it comes to these beautiful boxes, my first impression upon going through it, first of all, is the sheer quantity of stuff that you go through in such a small box. It's heavy, it's jam-packed, it feels like fulfilling, honestly. I was like, as I just brought it up onto the table and I started looking through it, and it is, yes, we do have a link to that unboxing video. We'll get it in a second. Waffles maybe can do that for us, but it's on our YouTube if you want to go searching for that. Okay, so with this box, I'm very, very curious because you guys have just announced a new box, the Spelljammer, and you have different levels of boxes, right? This is the gold edition. Do you always try to release multiple like versions of a box, or is it just like how do you like decide that type of stuff?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, I think we try to let the source material dictate what the box is going to be. In the case of Absalom, we had initially planned for it to be a silver, which would have been a smaller box without a map tube. And as we got into it and saw all the possibilities, we just made the decision that the only way we felt like we could really do it justice was to bump it up to a gold edition level. Generally, we only do one platinum edition a year. That's,
Oh, okay.
I think we've stuck to that. Because they are, they're very expensive, and they're an enormous lift for us on a production side. So we don't do that very often. And when we do a platinum edition, we try to partner that with a silver edition of the same the same adventure or source material, because we are, as I said, we are sensitive to that. My God, my dogs are going nuts.
They want to be friends with our
sorry.
dogs. It's okay.
Yeah. We are really sensitive to the fact that the platinum editions are expensive and they're a limited edition and they do sell out. And so we try to have an alternative version, that's that is more accessible to people. So we've been doing that for the last couple of years as well.
That's really awesome to hear. Yeah, I think talking on the expense side just a little bit, like that is something that a lot of people always ask, right? Like especially I think in these unboxing videos and things like that, like one of the first things is always like, oh, but is it worth it? And I think that's a very difficult question to answer because it really depends. But I think I'm bringing this up now because I want to talk about it later. I want to go into the considerations of the quality of the things that you put into these boxes to kind of get a better understanding as to like what you talk about, those considerations. You talk about offering also like a silver version and things like that. What other considerations go into it that all I'm sure affect the end cost and everything as well. So speaking of the thing that I think Shar and I love a lot, quality of paper quality, little quality, like the little things. I come from a graphic design background. I am very aware of like the difference that printing a map or printing, anything on quality, beautiful paper that's amazing to touch, that has whether it's matte, whether it's gloss, like whatever it is. Do you make each and every one of those decisions? Is that something that's more in Shar's domain? How does that go about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination, right? So we will work with the designer to understand what's the intent of this piece. It's like I immediately go to the in-world handouts, because with an in-world handout, the paper style can vary greatly. You could go from a newspaper type paper to a very high-end royal invitation. So we'll start with the design, but then we also have a very good relationship with our printer. And so we will work with their team to figure out what are our options, what are our paper options, and let's pick those paper, the paper based on what we want, what aesthetic we want to get across.
Sure. Is it
That's
one of
my
those
favorite things about them?
Go ahead.
That's one of my favorite things about all the handouts, how they're all like, they're
Different.
not just like different looks on the same paper. Like the paper is part of the handout.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask, and kind of like the quality and considerations going into it. Is I noticed I think it's a great quality of life upgrade, but I noticed it doesn't matter as much how it affects cost and stuff. But I noticed that the character like the NPC sheets are, instead of just being double-sided, are like double-sided to the point that you could fold them and make them stand up like on a table. And that's one thing that really hit me as a GM, is like it's a little more paper, but it's just a quality of life upgrade, honestly. Like,
so
Yeah,
that
thanks.
is, yeah. Sorry, I just had to say it was really funny when I found that out, because I was unboxing this, and you could watch that because I'm an idiot when it comes in these unboxing videos. Like, honestly, I'm sorry, but I do make myself laugh because I was like, oh, whoa, this is cool. Oh, and they have it on the other side too, which is really nice because then you could like show it to your players and you're having it, and then I go to put it down and it kind of like accidentally opens, and I was like, oh, it stands up. This is amazing. So that blew my mind a little bit. Just had to say.
You can also hang them on your DM screen if you.
Yep.
Yeah, that works very well too.
That.
They're
So like
sized-
if you're in
sized to fit.
if you're in like a conversation with 2 NPCs in a room, you hang the pictures towards the player sides. You have all the stats, and I think it just makes for like a really good, a quality of life upgrade for the GM.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that because this is the Absalom box. So what Pathfinder 2e does a lot is use tags, right? It uses those all spells, everything. All these tags all mean a lot of things. And so I noticed that you kind of commandeered that styling for sharing that information via like NPCs or anything like that. So you guys have like lawful evil. Ooh, sorry, this might be spoilers, guys. I don't know who this is. I don't know what's going on.
I know it's already been spoiled.
But yeah.
He's lawful evil. He won't be a problem.
And there's also like a number value and like all of these cross-reference with each other, like from a design standard of like just getting all these to fit together to be the most useful. Like every little thing is ingenious. Like honestly, I can see how much little. This isn't a question. This is just me fawning over it. I just want you guys to realize. But no, I think it's wild to see how the little things that you think of make a huge difference to the impact of the whole piece altogether. Shar, you mentioned that you had those designs at the corner of each location in Absalom. So Lost Omens, Absalom is huge. It's a sprawling city, has so many sectors, and that's a lot of information to digest at once. So not only you pulled these out, like how did you think to like cross-reference and to incorporate all of this with the design? Like what is your thought process behind, like how do you approach it?
So for me, I'm like, I get lost really easily. I'm really good at getting unlost in real life, but I'm really bad at getting unlost in like virtual worlds.
Sure.
Whether it's, a video game or a role-playing game. And so for me, like having a mini map is like, it just centers me. And so we had each district map. We were creating those for the handouts. And I was looking at them and I was like, man, it would be really nice to have this like on each card also, with, the key location called out so people could have like the general reference of where it is. And then also like see what's around you.
That
So like
it wasn't just that you put the mini map like on there, but you added like the little like the numbered locations cross-referenced amongst everything. Because look, when you're a GM, you have a whole bunch of like references and a whole bunch of information that you're trying to do. So having as much ease into not having to like, okay, wait, let me go get the district map so I can see what is here when I want to look at this location. So wait, this was 1, so where was that compared to? It's all like together on one card. I think that the fact that you think of that you consider that, and then make sure to kind of input that makes a huge difference and a testament to like the type of quality of things that I see here anyways. It's really cool.
Yeah, making those tiny was a real pain.
I can imagine.
You have to have all the locations all on there, and they've got like 30 locations per district. And then like making it so it's small enough to not be obnoxious and big enough to still be like moderately legible. I mean, obviously I made the key location legible, but trying to figure out how to do all the other ones was like really hard. I went through a lot of different versions of that.
Yeah. I mean, thank you, because then we get cool stuff like this. And by the way, I got to the point of the box where I have all the little paper handouts. And I wish that this was something that you could touch right now. I wish I could be like, here, look, touch this, now touch this, but I can't. So I kind of like hold it up to the light. Like, this is a textured, fancy, beautiful invitation. We talked about like the quality of the individual things, and I hold all of these things, and they're a bunch of little pieces of paper which could easily be dismissed in a box like this. Here's all this information. And instead, like, each and every one of these things is unique and different to the touch. And I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? And it makes you interested in like what each individual piece is. So here's a curious question. This is the type of stuff that is amazing and beautiful when you're in person. Have you ever thought of like how do you express this much like care and attention when going virtual? Has that been ever anything you guys considered with these things?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot, and I boy, I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, because I love the fact
Hot
that
take,
we
let's go.
can all. No, I genuinely love the fact that we can all play online now. Like, I think it's a huge thing for us as a society, and it's great for people who don't necessarily have close friends who want to play. Like, there were periods of my life growing up where I just didn't have friends who played, and so I didn't get to play. And the fact that we all have those options is fantastic. But selfishly, as an old man who grew up on D&D in the 80s, and I will say, you can't replace some of the magic that comes from doing things in person.
Yeah.
And
you can't, for sure.
That's a very valid answer.
And we do everything we possibly can to make things that will sustain themselves in a virtual environment. I mean, I think we have some amazing cartographers who create amazing maps that will look gorgeous if you put them up on your screen. Will it be the same thing as rolling it out on your table?
Yeah.
No, it will not. And there's not much we can do about that.
Yeah.
But we are always thinking about that and trying to think of ways that we can enhance virtual gaming as well. And we'll keep banging our heads against that wall until we figure out some more things that we can do with it.
Well, you've already done two things since I started working with you.
Yeah.
The Demi-Plane Alliance and the Character Chronicles in PDF.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And you were a huge part of that, Char. We absolutely could not have done those. Well, we wouldn't have had the Character Chronicles at all without you and Rob. But we hit that point with those Chronicles where we realized that there would be a desire to have them as PDFs, and we could have, and now I'm really patting myself on the back. This is embarrassing. We could have just put out PDFs of them. And one of the things that I love about our partnership with Char and Rob, and we aspire for this with our partnerships whenever we work with people, is that we're constantly challenging each other to raise the bar on whatever it is we're working on. And this was one of those things where we said, no, we're not going to do a PDF. And then we sort of, by confronting each other on that, we realized, no, we have to do it. And then we realized, no, if we're going to do it, it's got to be a fillable PDF. It's got to be something where every single page you can fill in all of this stuff. And it was a real challenge. We'd never done anything like that before. But I'm really, really glad that we didn't settle for something simpler, because now there are people using them, and people seem to really like them. And I'm really, we're all really proud of them. So
it was brought up when we did the unboxing for the Character Chronicles. That was one of the first things that was mentioned, because the Character Chronicles to me were very interesting in their intent. So with every box, like I can tell the intent behind it, right? Like for the Absalom City of Lost Omens, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to tell you what I got from it, and it's a GM resource book, box almost. Additional little tidbits, because the book itself from Paizo is a setting book, meaning it has an abundance of information on a location. So you didn't just turn that into, okay, well, here's a box with abundance of information on a location. To me, it felt very much like, here's some a little adventures that you can run, and if you're the GM, here's all these character cards with this, here's a breakdown of the information of the different districts like Shar was talking about. And to me, it seemed very, very helpful and useful from a GM side of things. So would that be accurate?
Yeah, it's absolutely accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for this box in particular, it was really important for us to nail the functionality of it, because it is so massive.
Yes.
And it is such a massive piece and that's what is so advantageous to having someone like Shar to work with, because she understands the game, right? She understands gaming. And so she brings ideas to the table that you're not going to have if you're just working with a graphic designer who isn't also immersed in gaming and in the game itself.
That's very
so yeah, absolutely. It's part functionality, but it's also part, like you said, beauty and the paper and the high-end quality and immersing the players in the world.
The amount of thought that goes into it at every step of the way is very, very apparent, because I opened this box and I got that vibe. I got a high quality, like, beautiful, resourceful and kind of product, and that's just from going through it, not knowing all of that insight. So I think that comes across really, really amazingly. The reason I asked that is because the character chronicles were interesting to me. You talk about so like I said, one of the first questions that we got when we were doing that unboxing was, what happens when you want more paper, or you want to add something at the end, or how would you utilize this? I think this would be, somebody was like, I think this should be useful as a PDF, so that you could just print more pages if you want to. And that was a discussion that we had. And so what I pulled from the character chronicles is a recording, in my opinion, after the fact. If you want to, like, take a character and say, I went through a whole journey with this character and I want to chronicle their experiences. And so to me, that's how I would utilize it, because this is a gorgeous book and I don't want to start filling it out for a character that's about to die in like
what if I die?
Yeah.
Yep. That was one of my first comments, is like, yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, do the first couple of but here's my argument, and I know this is easy to say because it's not my $40, but isn't that part of the thrill of playing a game? Is that there are stakes to it, that there is risk to it?
It's a different game. It's a different game nowadays, but I remember back when, like, my first time playing when I was like 13 with one of my friend's uncles, and one of the biggest thrills was getting my character sheet ripped up at the table. Like back when the DM would take your character sheet and rip it up because you died, like.
Right.
Please don't.
When I was
you played a lot of wizards.
Yes.
I used to run a Shadowrun game when we were living in Manhattan. And at the beginning of every game, I would have a handful of subway tokens that I'd put on the table in case anybody's character died and they had to go home early. I was paying for their subway fare.
Love it.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, that's easy for me to say.
No, I think that's valid. That's why I wanted to kind of pitch that to y'all, because I was very curious what your opinion on it is, because it's a different mindset. So like, and you cannot design a product for 1,000 mindsets to an extent, right? You do have to kind of decide on a certain something and be like, okay, this is what we're going with. Like, I'm so obsessed with design and the beauty of things that I'm like, I do not want to mess this up. So that's where my brain went. I was like, I would do this after the fact. I had a beautiful character.
That's a totally valid way to do it. I mean, the thing is, once you have your book, you could put it on your shelf and never touch it.
Sure.
You could like scribble on the first page to get yourself started.
Mm-hmm.
You could like take notes during your session on like some crappy
Scrap
piece of paper
paper.
you're not going to reuse, and then like
transfer.
journal in character.
Mhm.
Like it's really up to you, or you could just take messy notes right in there.
Yeah,
Like,
and
who's
that's
gonna stop you?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, if your character dies, oh well, you just gotta buy another one. It sucks.
Just put junior on the end and pick up where
Well,
there's and the death certificate you just write, bequeath my quest to
I
Grimm Junior.
I wanted to talk about that death certificate because that I adored that. I was like, all right, this weapon is going to this like my prized possession. I thought that was adorable and a really really great touch. So I just extra little shout out there because I loved that.
Thanks. That's another benefit of Robin Shars. They have a great sense of humor, and we all
I
we all
mean, that
kind of
was your
clicked on that
idea,
level.
though. We just made the jokes.
So that brings up a very like so from a perspective of like your end, so John and Bill, your end on like the business side versus like the design side, what can we get a little look into like that process? Is it is it, hey, this is what we're trying to do, this is our goal, hand it off, or is there like a lot of discussions to figure out what it becomes?
Well, I'll give you a good example that we're working through right now with Spelljammer. And I have to be a little bit careful as I dance around this to make sure I don't say anything I'm not supposed to say. But so we are working on, we made the decision. I think it was actually Chris Perkins who suggested it to us. We had an idea for making a shipyard catalog, like an in-world catalog of that would have various kinds of ships in it, because there are a lot of ships. So my immediate thought was the fighter catalog, the fighter weapons catalog in the Character Chronicles fighter book, which
that was like a shop, right?
Yeah, so it's like a Sears Roebuck catalog of armor and weapons.
I adored that, and I was sad I didn't have that for the druid.
Yeah. It would have been fun to do it for all of them, but if we're fortunate enough to be able to continue that series, I think we can do like maybe Barbarian. We'll get one that'll be a little bit different. That could be a lot of fun. But anyway, so we knew immediately. Shar and Rob did such a great job on the one for the fighter book that we would use them. So we partnered up with them and said, okay, here's the basic idea. Here's the number of ships that we want to get in there. We want it to be in world. We're kind of thinking like a used car salesman kind of vibe. So our first step was just sort of pulling comps of things, of looking at, like, okay, what does that mean? Like how do we narrow down this aesthetic to try to figure out what we want this to look like? So we started going through those. Rob and Shar started doing some basic mock-ups of things. We decided that it's going to be, okay, we need about 8 page sides. We've decided to do it in sort of an accordion folding thing because we wanted it to be contained and all together, but 8 pages isn't really enough to do like binding on. So that's sort of a practical, technical issue where we went to Ampersand, who's our printers, and said, okay, what do you think about this? Making sure that the practical side of it will make sense. So now we have sort of a basic template. We go back to Rob and Shar. We say, okay, here's the basic template. Here's how many ships we need. They start putting together some aesthetic ideas. And then in the first kind of iteration of that, we've started to realize that, hey, you know what? We really need an extra artist who can do some renderings of some of these ships that fits the aesthetic, because taking the really painterly stuff out of the book and putting it into a used car catalog isn't going to quite.
Yeah.
No.
So you try to utilize existing like pieces and change it when you need to fit that aesthetic, like or something like that. Like you try to.
Yeah, I mean, there's look, the books from Paizo or from WotC or whatever they're gorgeous, and there's great art in them, and they're great resources. And anytime we can use existing materials, we love to use it. If you look in the character chronicles, there's a lot of God, Paizo was so wonderful about partnering with us on those books. They were amazing. They gave us access to everything.
Oh man.
So there's art in there from 2E, there's art in there from 1E, there's art in there from the comics.
That's so cool.
They let us look at everything, and we just kept pulling all this fun stuff, and it's a great mix.
That's amazing.
Anyway, so we definitely want to use great stuff if we have great stuff available and if it works. But the reason we wanted to nail down the aesthetic of this piece early was because that will inform us as to what media will work and what won't.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's I guess what I'm saying is it's a big old team effort, and we try to get good team members who. What we haven't had success with is handing things off to people who just want to execute orders.
Okay.
Because it's just not these aren't those kinds of projects. It's not all that often where we can say, this is exactly what we want, just lay it out on a piece of paper and hand it back to us.
Sure.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, that's really, really fascinating to hear, because yes, it absolutely sounds like from the moment of like concept, you're involving the designers, and at any point in time where there's like a physical piece that's obviously really important, really involved, you're involving the experts from that field, so like the printers and everything like that. And I think that's not easy to do, because when you have so many hands in the pot all the time, communication and all sorts of that stuff is very difficult to manage. But when you have people that are passionate about it, you can tell that you have really amazing products like this. Like, genuinely, like, it's really hard to imagine to execute something like this, and to hear like all that it takes to go into that was not a sentence. All that goes into these things, and everything that it takes is crazy to actually get this as a final product. Which is awesome. So thank you for sharing that. That was to me, that's fascinating. I'm like, oh yes, what else?
I'm glad, because I felt like I talked for an enormously long time.
This is the type of stuff I wanted. This is gorgeous. I do want to check in, Waffles, how I said in the beginning of this, and I was like, oh, no worries, I'll look at chat and I'll let you know if there's anything, and I didn't at all, but I'm hoping that you did, Waffles.
Yeah, I've been typing back to a lot of chat. We haven't had any direct questions, so I haven't stopped to ask them. Okay. We've had a lot of good conversation about our conversation, though, so I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
And now we have a direct question. So, so what are the considerations for setting the price point?
Yes, I wanted to get to that.
Pause it?
What's that?
I said you're gonna pause it, because that was one of your last questions.
No, we can definitely get into it. The way I want to ask that, though, so that is my general question. What are the considerations for setting the price point? But I'm curious about, do you start off balls to the walls, what can we do, and price it at a later point and say okay, where do we scale back? Or is it a consideration from the start? Because sometimes it's just exciting to get into it and see the potential. So it's really hard. I'm curious how you guys do that.
That's what Jon is for.
Is that why he's salty goblin?
No,
he's not wrong.
No.
Somebody could just GIF that, and then you can just send it. That's perfect.
You want to take that one, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say, for something like a platinum box, it is definitely, to use your term, balls to the wall, where it's we are going to have a creative session. Don't think about restrictions right now. Don't think about what the constraints are. Let's just get all the best ideas on the table, and then we can sort through it later.
Sure.
If there's a product that we know is going to be a silver edition, for example, obviously in that situation, there are going to be some ideas that are pretty quickly going to be sunk, just because you're not going to be able to put a 10-foot high plushie in the silver edition. Well, maybe you could.
Can I have
I'm
one
not going to say
anyways,
no
though?
to
Because that
anything.
sounds great.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, yes. Where we start is always what does this product need? What's going to serve this product? And then go from there. And then once we decide, okay, this is going to be a gold edition, this is going to be a platinum or a silver, then that helps us decide which of the ideas are going to be able to make it.
Yeah, I think
follow-up question on
Yeah, go
that.
ahead.
So ideas and everything. So at least to my brain, being like, okay, we're gonna include coasters. We have really cool NPC cards. Where do the considerations for kind of scaling back to a question we said earlier? Where are the considerations for if we downgrade the paper quality by X, then we can reduce the price by X? Does that ever come into play, and like all that kind of stuff?
So, well, okay, yeah. So let me, there's two things to answer there. One, the first thing is one of the commitments that we've made to ourselves, and I don't know if we've ever said this to our customers, but we feel like it's a commitment to our customers, is that we don't make choices to downgrade quality. Like if you look at the Platinum Edition and the Silver Edition of Frostmaiden, there's nothing in the Silver Edition that is a crappy version of the same thing from the Platinum Edition. It's just less things. And that's really important to us because we don't want, we want to make sure that whatever edition you're getting, it's still a level of quality that we're going to be proud of. And it's more just the amount of things that defines what the product is. In terms of like scaling back, I mean, I think what sorry, I just read that description. Well, I can't start drinking. It's too early. Like what Jon described is right. Probably the most fun day of the development of any box is that first sort of brainstorming session where we just say, don't worry about it. Let's just see what happens. And we just make big lists of, if I was GMing this thing, what would I want? If I was a player in this thing, what would I want? And then it's true. We do have to start leaving things on the cutting room floor. And our sort of guiding light in that decision process is what is going to serve the DM best. Because some things we come up with are super fun and they'd be fun to make and they'd be fun to show off and fun to take pictures of, and maybe we could sell them outside of the box. But if it's not serving an essential function, then we're always going to have questions about it. Now, every now and then something sneaks into the box where we're like, yeah, all right, we have room for that. What the heck? Let's put it in there, even though it's a little silly. Yeah. But that is the biggest thing. We have all GM'd a lot in lots of different game systems over a long time. And so I think what I consider to be one of our best attributes is that we are all very attuned to how scary and risky it can be to be the GM of a game. Like it is. You're taking a big risk. You're hosting a party. You're telling a story in front of an audience. You feel responsible for everybody. Yes, we can hear. We feel responsible for everybody's happiness. There's a reason that people are hesitant to take on that role. And so we are trying our damnedest to make a GM's life better, to make them feel more confident, make them feel more comfortable, and give them tools where they can not just be adequate, but be amazing and create an amazing experience for the group.
Specifically, I think for what I've seen, like you lowered the threshold to go to that next level of amazing. And I think that's super, super, super awesome. Like with these invitations and things like that, like you want, like I used to be as a part of the Sofim Israeli Scouts, and we used to like make. I was a counselor basically for kids, and we used to make like things for them. And I don't. There's a word for it in Hebrew that it's very slang, so it's called the chupar, but it's just like little things like tchotchkes, like little things that you just give out because people love getting things. And
Knick-Knacks.
Knick-Knacks, thank you. Yeah, like whatever you want to call it. And so as a GM, I have that same want. I want to gift my player things. I want them to go ooh and ah, because that makes me as a GM feel incredibly satisfying. And by the way, I'm starting my GM experience. I started with Outcast and Outclassed, our Strength of Thousands campaign. That's kind of one of my first things, and I'm already kind of like, okay, well, how can I take this to the next level? What are these little things that you can do? But the time consumption for GMs already is insanely high. And,
Right.
you know, when I was a high schooler, yeah, okay, I'll spend my weekend making little things for kids. But now, like with balancing everything else, that ask is a lot higher. And so to be able to have an amazing quality piece of paper that I can hand, that you can hold, hey, you find this on the ground, you pick it up, here you go, and not have to make that. Not have to. I just sent physical letters, preview to anybody coming. This Thursday is our session, so nobody knows this yet. But I sent physical letters to my players across the U.S. right now, so that on
awesome.
stream, oh yeah, he has one.
Well
On
done.
stream, he can open it up, because I still want that even when we are playing online. And
Yeah.
it took me like 2-3 hours writing all of these out by hand and all this type of stuff. And so just having this box and being like, I don't have to worry about that. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And you can tell, like, I don't know. The reason I wanted to talk about this, the reason I wanted to bring all of you on is because when I opened this box, I could tell. And I was fascinated by what does it take behind the scenes to get it to be like this. Because so often you see the drop in the quality, or you see the drop in the intent or things like that. And so it's fascinating. And so thank you for going into all of that. I mean, it's so cool to see. Honestly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Waffles, what else do you have, if anything?
I'm going to go away from what I have to. We have one of our loyal viewers that has one more question for y'all, if y'all don't mind.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna state the question, and then I'm gonna change it slightly to how I think it was meant to be asked.
Yep.
So they say, how many creatures characters do you guys create before you start leaving some on the cutting room floor because of content limitations? And my interpretation and kind of how I want to ask it is, do you ever actually cut characters? And if you do you now have like a backlog? So I'm talking like my brain goes immediately to like the fighter store that you guys made and the fighter character chronicles.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like that. Like my brain is like, whoa, how many items did they not put in here? You know, like.
Oh yeah.
No, we put all of them in.
Okay.
Like literally,
Yeah, that's
if there's art for something, we put it in. And if there isn't art for something and we think like we really need art, I'm like, well, can we get the art for that?
Yeah, we went a little over budget on that particular section because we did get an artist to do sketches of everything. But I mean, in general, look, there always are limitations. I mean, I read that question as well, and my thought was about the encounter cards. And yeah, I mean, we could have we could have put in more encounter cards. I mean, you know, there are limits of I mean, honestly, with the encounter cards, it's more about space than it is about cost, although both of the things come into play. But
For sure.
but we try to adjust to what the box dictates. So like with Absalom, that was the first time we ever did location cards as well as encounter cards.
Yeah.
Absalom's because
and the location cards are amazing in my opinion.
Super.
Thank you. I think the material just demanded it, and so we just adjusted other things to make sure that we could get those in there.
I think all of this and all the decision making stems from, like you said before, the individuals involved knowing the product. And that I don't mean like knowing Absalom, City of Lost Omens, but knowing TTRPGs, at least knowing Pathfinder 2e, knowing D&D, whatever that product is, to a certain extent. What I'm curious about is who is tasked with the making of like mechanics and things like that. So we have our designers, we have our concepts and things like that. But when you make an NPC and you stat them out or you make magic items, who does that?
Jon?
Not me.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll take Absalom for example. We wrote some of the bonus encounters in-house. I worked on some of those, but we also brought in a contractor writer that was recommended to us from Paizo, who came in and helped us on one of the longer pieces. And so it could be a mix. It could be stuff that we do in-house, but we also could bring in an expert to help us with things like writing and mechanics. And also, keep in mind, everything that we do goes through Paizo or WotC or, Darrington Press. Everything goes through them. So they have a chance to look at it and say, you're missing something here, or you did, you want to tweak this or that because it's not quite right. I mean, we try to do our best to bring quality there so that they have very little to say, but it is, that is part of the process is collaborating with them.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
We've learned a lot.
Final.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say we've gotten a lot better at it over the years.
Heck yeah.
Thank God the feedback's a little less severe now.
Real quick, how was it the first time you touched Pathfinder 2e?
Well, okay, so I will say our biggest period of playing role-playing games was 3E and 3.5 from D&D. At which so Pathfinder is not like a big stretch for us. It's extremely familiar.
Sure.
Now that being said, Pathfinder is complex. I mean, maybe Shadowrun was more complex, but that's the only other game I've run that I can think of that is as complicated.
Shadowrun and 1E, I would put them up in some of the most complex, but in my opinion, most fun TTRPGs.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're awesome, and the options that you have and the number of directions you can go is so great with it.
Yeah. With 2E, I think like the way it balances across like scale is the craziest thing, and I can imagine to bring new content in on that front, and you're not learning a system to play, you're bringing new content in. That's definitely a big like hurdle to get through.
The character chronicles were like the first time I had touched Pathfinder 2, and I spent a bunch of time just like reading through the core book, and I got into a game, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna read all the classes that we're doing.
Sure.
Because like at that point, I'm like, I can't. This is a big book.
For sure.
I'll read about barbarians and bards and all the other classes later. But
I'll spend a second to hype up the Pathfinder 2e, and I kind of want to know y'all's opinion on it. But from what I've seen, I delve highly into the mechanical side of games. I love homebrewing. I love messing with the numbers. I'll adjust almost every monster just because if someone's played 2e before, I don't want them to know what a wolf does, like
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. I find 2e to be very it's made to be GM and content creator homebrew friendly, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's super
Based on their
moddable.
balance. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do y'all think about that? And like, obviously, like with the Absalom box, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, totally agree. How about you, Jon?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like you, I love to switch stuff up on my players because I love for the person who knows every aspect of the monster manual to, and sometimes I'll describe the monster a little bit differently.
Ooh.
Like it
They
has,
can't even
it
expect it.
has fire coursing through it. And so they're like, whoa, what's that?
That's not what I
So
thought
that-
it
so that
was.
they
And you're
have
like,
some
"It's a
idea
troll."
that it's not going to be their usual creature.
That's so much fun. Absolutely.
My favorite recently was we were playing Starfinder and there was these wolves. They fought on a planet. It was like a nature planet, Castroville, and I was like, yeah, you see these wolves. There's like a pack of them. There's 3 of them. There's one larger, but all of them have these like glowing throats.
We were like, oh, dogs, wolves, what? It was fantastic. No, I am so jealous of those of you, John Waffles, that have that mind of that mechanic mind. I mean, Waffles, you're a nuclear engineer. I know you know numbers. I'm like, ooh, I'll make it look pretty. But
I tell you, I cannot. When I'm rolling dice at the table, it takes me like a good 5 to 10 seconds to add up the 2 dice.
that is one bonus to VTTs that is quite amazing. But
Yeah.
we are getting towards our end time here, so I will, instead of asking a direct question, I'm going to throw it to y'all. Is there anything about the process of making these boxes that we haven't touched on? Bill, nothing is boring, nothing is too much, because this is fascinating to me. So if there's any part of this that we haven't really touched on that I think is interesting for people to know about, please let us know.
What do you think, Jon?
You could talk about the printer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'll try and end with is, and Bill already said it once, but I'll just say it again, is that we try our best to surround ourselves with people who know what they're doing, that are going to help us.
I mean,
Whether it is an amazing designer like Shar, or it's an illustrator who all I have to do is say, this is what we're trying to do, and they come back with these sketches that blow me away. Or it's an in-world handout artist where I say, this is the feel I'm going for, and boom, they come back with a concept where I'm like, that is awesome. I never even thought of that. It's just all about making sure we have the people who are communicating with us and working with us and really collaborative. And that includes the printer.
mhm.
And that includes everyone along the line. So yeah, I mean, that's huge for us.
Yeah, I think it's if you're ever going to do anything like this, find people who love it as much as you do.
That
And
is
if
critical.
If you do, it'll work.
Then you get a critical hit. Okay, no, that was my pun. But I will say, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, from hearing about the process, as I get my ears. Sorry, when we get a sub, even though I've turned off all of my sounds, it still goes into my ears. So when it comes to getting this box, so I have the joy of being the consumer side of it, right? And you open it up for the first time and you're like, holy crap, this is heavy. Oh, this is so cute. It was packed by goblins. That's like your packing tape even has something special and cute. And I loved it from the moment that we got a cardboard box, you know what I mean? And then from that moment you get to open it and you get to feel, and you talk about like everything has a purpose, but you balance the fun stuff. There's coins, there's things that you concretely have in your hand and you feel like, oh, this isn't just, I can use this even if I'm not playing this game, even if I'm not actively running anything. And so you have that balance in mind. You have every little detail of making things both useful and beautiful and all of those things. And so from the moment that I open the box, like I can tell. And I can see now from hearing a little bit more about that process why that is. And you mentioned that it's getting people that know what they're doing and that are experts in their field, and I mean really talented like Char, like absolutely. I don't want to not underestimate, like not also put stress on the organization of all of that. Communication is not easy, and to head a project like that, like Waffles and I, we run WMS as a business. It's not easy. Absolutely. And to scale it to such an extent, and to make such amazing things is not an easy feat. So that in and of itself, you guys deserve all the kudos. So it's not all on everybody else. Just saying.
For sure.
Thank you.
That's very
True.
kind. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of
it.
course.
And they're like just really fantastic to work with as a, as a creator. So when I do freelance, like, well, ever since I got into the nerd domain, it's been more fun. But like, it's not just like you get something handed to you and then you get your criticism or whatever.
Right.
It's like a back and forth process where if I have a question, I can go to them with a question, and if they have a question, they can ask me, which is less common.
And it honestly sounds like an environment where like you also get listened to, which I think is that's what
Yes.
strikes me the most about the box. Is one of the things you said earlier that you said it as not a negative thing, but almost a neutral thing, and I saw it as a hugely positive thing. Was you rarely find people that you can just give an executable order. And I thought that was just hugely positive, because that means everything that you give to someone, they probably have some input, which puts personality into the box.
I
For
can
sure.
say right now, if Char didn't have the input that she suggested on the little maps or things like that this product wouldn't be that level that it is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I mean, just as an example to hype Rob, who isn't here, we brought on Rob and Char as designers and layout artists, and Rob ended up writing 99% of the copy in that fighter catalog. I mean,
And he just did for the ship catalog too.
yeah, and he's doing it for the ship catalog. I mean, and that's, I could have written it,
Sure.
but him bringing a different voice in, and he turned out to be just hysterical and brilliant as a writer of that stuff, and that added yet another level to it that wouldn't have been there if I had just said no, I'm going to do it all and you guys do your job.
Yeah.
So
coming from both the creative side of things like this, like doing WMS, but I also have a full-time job in a corporate environment. It is hard to flip between the two. But be it in that setting or in this setting, I think there's absolutely something to say that when you have somebody who's passionate about something and you let them follow their passion, you get amazing stuff. So it's exciting to see it in action, because I'm always wanting that. I'm wanting to be able to produce a product the way that you guys are producing it. So thank you for the insight. Thank you for all sharing your knowledge. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna learn from it. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Once again, Char, Jon, Bill, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your time tonight to chat, and everybody, y'all are also wonderful. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for showing your interest